Satisfied with a decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. All right. I move today for an approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is approval of the minutes of the September 12, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the consent agenda. Please note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed. We only have one item. Does anybody have an issue?
Move to approve.
We have let me read what it is first, and then we'll move to approve. Thank you. All right. This is an authorization to place an existing yield control to a stop control on Kathy Joe Drive at Kathy Joe Circle. Is there a move to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is Complementary Courthouse parking update for the public for attending Metro meetings at the courthouse. Okay. If you would, for the benefit of our new person recording minutes, please clearly state your name so that we can get your information.
Jack Malone, Nashville Downtown Partnership.
Okay.
Mike on.
Okay.
The red dot, it's red.
Thank you, Mr. Malone.
There you go.
Jack Malone, Nashville Downtown Partnership.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just here to give a quick update on the Complementary Courthouse parking. Over the first 6 months of the program, there was a little over 860 tickets processed in that time, generating almost $2,100 in revenue at the $5 approved rate. If these tickets had been processed at a regular rate, revenue would have been about $8,800. This is a small loss of approximately $1,100 a month, which is roughly less than 0.5% of our monthly revenue. We do expect this program to grow over time as it becomes more well known.
Next.
Yes, my name is Brad Freeze. I work with the Nashville Department of Transportation as the chief engineer there. So this actually, we're not asking for any action. This is an update that we were promised to provide back to the commission after the pilot has been extended. So this is a pilot that was actually started as a resolution that was requested for this complementary parking. So we are going to be bringing before the commission at a later date, hopefully next time, a recommendation for moving forward, making the pilot more of a formal program.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
It looks like some of the council meetings tend to go on a while, and so attendees of those meetings, the public can park. Is that what this is for?
That is correct.
So is that are you getting any feedback? Are they being used?
Yeah, so that's what this table represents here is the number of validations that are actually being used and taken as they are being used. It is advertised by two methods. So tickets are dispersed by staff members of the Metropolitan Clerk's Office. In addition, they are provided outside of the court office or of the council chambers with instructional signage that they can be picked up for validation.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, council member.
Thank you, Chair. I would share as well that committee chairs often at council time are providing those as well if members of the public do attend committees as well. Because this was advanced by resolution at council, I wanted to suggest that at the next, Transportation and Infrastructure Committee meeting, perhaps, that you provide a similar update, or at least just be there prepared. I mean, I will mention to the committee chair, but I think it might be helpful for council to get this information and for this commission to get any additional feedback, whether that be from the clerk's office or council before in a month you're coming back to us with an actual policy. So I just wanted to suggest, since this was council driven, that in the intervening time that might be a touch base there would be worthwhile. Thank you.
We will do that. We'll seek out to get on an agenda. We will seek out to get on the agenda.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you both. The next item is authorization for a new 60-foot loading zone, a 24/7 loading zone for an assisted living facility at 3416 Murphy Road, requested by KCI on behalf of Clarendale West End. Who's here to speak for that? Okay. Make sure you clearly state your name for the record, please.
Megan Ziegler with KCI Technologies.
Thank you, Ms. Ziegler. You got your mic on, the red button should turn on. There you go.
Okay. Megan Ziegler, KCI Technologies.
Please proceed.
Yes, we're just requesting a loading zone for pickup and drop off. This is an elderly facility, so just primarily picking up and dropping off folks. It's also going to operate as the kind of ambulance loading bay so that ambulance doesn't need to pull into the garage area.
And according to the drawing, this looks to be a indented space, not in the curbside.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments? Sir, yes, Commissioner Henderson.
I just wanted to inquire, in looking at the plan, to Chair Green's point, I see the indentation, and I think I can see a measurement as to the width of the indentation, and the remaining sidewalk is maybe like 7'8", but I couldn't find a measurement with the indentation. What is the width of travelway between the building and the cutout? So what's the remaining sidewalk width adjacent to the drop-off area?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the site plan with me. It's probably MCSP standards.
Okay, I guess I just would ask staff, as far as the review that you all go through before it gets here, kind of where is this and what is the MCSP standard here, and are we looking at a variance in that? Because I guess as I looked at it, if that width is 7+, what remained looked to maybe be 5 feet, which I know is sufficient for ADA compliance. In fact, even less of that, but I just didn't know what was the standard in the
Staff,
surrounding area.
could you please comment on this issue? I mean, it looks to me like the sidewalk, if the sidewalk is the kind of dotted area next to the curb.
I wish I had a better view of this, but I think it was 6 on the sidewalk.
To my knowledge, we're meeting all of the MCSP standards.
Okay, I appreciate that, Chair. So staff, I see Mr. Smith saying it's 6 feet, but I guess I was just wondering, what is the standard on this street or in this area? Is it in fact 6 feet?
I don't have that number with me right offhand.
Is there a larger view so that we can get perspective on where exactly this is located? No, a larger view, not a narrower view. More like a Google Earth, so people can see clearly.
I guess, Chair Green, I'm just wanting to understand from a staff review perspective, if just sort of the decision tree on something like this. Absolutely, I concur, and I think it's important. We're talking about ambulance drop-off and assisted living, and we want to facilitate this. But I just want to understand that, if we're setting standards for certain sidewalk widths, how staff recommends approval, just in reference to our major and collector street plan, please.
Mr. Smith, please.
I'd just like to point out that Park Avenue is being reconstructed with part of this project. It's a tear-down project for an assisted living facility. Park Avenue is currently about 20 feet in width, and it's being reconstructed to a 27-foot width. And the proposed passenger and freight loading zone adds that little pull-off area. It looks like that the sidewalk width in that little compressed area next to the pull-off appears to be about 6 feet. The remainder of the sidewalk is about 10 feet. The area is I don't know if it's zoned residential, but the rest of the sidewalk is about 10 feet or so, and it comes up to the curb.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then if you can then just explain why we're going from a right-of-way width of 20 feet, which would be kind of nice and traffic calmed. So you're saying the travel way for vehicles is now going to be 27 feet, meaning the roadway widths are going to, what are the lane widths going to be there?
It appears to be, it's going to be it's going to carry two-way traffic. What's out there right now is essentially an alley. And the location, I'm sorry, I don't have a wider view of the area, but this is just north of Murphy Road. It is close to the Murphy Road intersection with West End, but this road is a little bit north of that. There's currently, there's several assisted living facilities that are there. They're all being torn down, and this new development will take the place of that, of those multiple facilities there. Right now, there's the existing conditions show, again, a little 20-foot path that's through there, and parking appears to be problematic there because there's numerous signs directing people not to park on the grass. So this will be a significant improvement for the area.
And I do want to note that we, as per the the traffic impact study, they are putting in speed humps and other traffic calming measures in the area.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other commissioners, any comments?
If not, I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner.
So I guess I would like to understand from staff, I would like to articulate as a commissioner that I think when we have available right-of-way with which to work, when we're talking about pullouts and parking areas and so forth, Mr. Smith, that I'm wanting us, just as far as our kind of decision tree, to understand that is first and foremost coming out of the roadway, right? So what I don't want to see is roadways colleagues getting
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Okay. I'd just like to point out that the developer is dedicating right-of-way with the project, and that the road width is designed to accommodate the vehicular traffic there. I don't think that speeding or traffic calming is going to be an issue at this area due to the sharpness of the curve. Like I said, the roadway is designed to accommodate the ambulance traffic and delivery traffic that's going to come through there. This is still going to remain a low traffic volume roadway.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a first and a second. Is there a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Next item. Is an update on the Indot policy for waiving Metro parking fees for Metro Department assisted events. Mr. Odom, are you speaking to that?
Yes, I am. Let's see, it should be in the packet. I don't know if it's going to be overhead or not. If you can skip past all the ticket information in your packet, all 455 pages. You'll get to waiving of parking fees. There was a request to modify this and defer it for 1 month, so I would just cover that real quickly. If you jump down to item D, that was pretty much rewritten. The new wording says fees can only be waived for large-scale events where assistance from Metro departments has been requested by the event organizer and approved by a Metro departmental director. This is basically how it's currently being done. The mayor's office, if an organizer, large event comes in needing assistance, that assistance is passed along to Metro departments, and the department director reviews those and either agrees or does not agree to assist. And if we do choose to assist, that's when parking would be beneficial to Metro staff. The second item is actually captured in letter D, as far as a time of when we would bring a list before the commission, which states Indot staff will bring an annually to the commission's June meeting a standing list of Metro assisted events for approval of waived parking fees. And then what's not captured in June, if events not included on the standing list where Metro assistance is approved, will be presented at the next regular commission meeting. And those are the two changes that were made.
So are you pretty clear, you recommending that action?
Just, yes, recommendation to approve this policy.
Any questions from commissioners? Yes, council member.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the additional work on this. I was the commissioner that made the motion for a one meeting deferral for additional refinement. When I did look at this, I appreciated that there was a month certain or a meeting certain. That was part of the discussion at last commission, so check the box on when. But in referring to the minutes and kind of thinking about the discussion we had, I could not kind of ascertain what additionally we had asked as far as refinement. So I did go back and watch the video. And so I still don't feel, colleagues, that this is meeting kind of the full measure of what we discussed. So, we talked about defining, support.
What improvement would you like, please, ma'am?
I'm getting there, Chair. We discussed in the importance of defining whether that be supported, co-sponsorship, partnering, kind of having a more precise language. And so I feel like while Section D has changed, I don't think, colleagues, that this is kind of sufficient refinement or detail. I think what I spoke to last time was we've kind of swung the pendulum from kind of randomized multiple nonprofits coming, kind of feeling like we're picking favorites, like this organization gets it, this organization doesn't. Now we've kind of swung the pendulum to it's just a few of the largest scale events, which probably, frankly, have the capacity to address this themselves. And so I don't feel like where assistance from Metro departments has been requested, as quoted here, is sufficient refinement, nor is large scale. The precision I was looking for, Chair, was more specifically in co-sponsorship, supported, partnering. I feel like we need to define that and kind of what does that mean. So I appreciate that we've continued to work on this, but I don't think this gets us where we need to be.
Any other commissioners have any comments, suggestions?
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve what's been submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a first and a second. So any further discussion on what's been proposed?
I think I'm a little unclear about what the commissioner is asking for. Commissioner Henderson, it might be me. Are you saying now this is too specific or is too broad?
I'm saying it still lacks sufficient detail. So fees can only be waived for large-scale events where assistance from Metro departments has been requested by the event organizer. That seems pretty, I think if in an effort to, first, as I did last time, Chair, I want to express appreciation that Indot is kind of getting to a place where we have these policies more precisely. Like this is good work and it is appreciated. But I feel like if we're going to make the effort to do that, let's get it to a level of precision where we don't have to, nor does the community feel, that staff is kind of picking favorites or that it's arbitrary. Things like large-scale events or where assistance, like that, in my view, as a legislator, is insufficiently precise.
So if it were then amended to just say events instead of large-scale, would that work?
I think what we were talking about last time was what Metro's role is in these events, and that is on kind of what this pivots on. So where assistance has been requested, that's, in my view, too broad. You can request a whole host of assistance from Metro government. So
staff, historically speaking, when have these requests been granted?
4th of July and New Year's.
Okay.
So, colleagues, then are we just making a policy that says for New Year's and 4th of July, for very large-scale events that have a whole lot of corporate sponsorship, that's when we're going to grant free parking? That doesn't seem like what we're trying to achieve.
I don't think that was, I think what we're trying to do was get context for the discussion. Ms. Alcorn,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Diana Alcorn, Director over Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure, and thank you very much. That's why we wanted to include in this also that we would bring in annually a list of the events to be approved. So if it's not on the list, then we're not going to waive. And if they wanted to have it waived, we would have to bring it the prior month before this commission for consideration. I think you want us to kind of nail it down a little bit further, if I'm understanding that it really has to be not the department, a promoter goes to the department and they say and ask, you want to make sure it's a city-sponsored event. And it's tied to that, not necessarily. I understand where you're coming from. So I might suggest in Section D that we just say that fees can be waived for, and I agree with taking out large, but just say for events. And then scratch where it says where assistance from Metro departments have been requested by the event organizer and approved by Metro departmental director, that we kind of scratch that and we would put in where it is actually a co-sponsored Metro event. And I think that defines that very clearly, that it's not for anything or it's subjective. It has to be a city-sponsored event or Metro Davidson County-sponsored event. And then with the list, bringing that before y'all for most certainly approval. And if it's not on the list, it's not happening. Would that make you more comfortable?
It would.
Can we make that amendment on the floor so we can move this policy forward?
Commissioner.
Wasn't that your motion?
Yeah.
Would you like to amend your motion?
Sure.
Yes.
Just real
Yes.
quick, the mayor's
Sorry,
office, they
thank
told me there's a difference between sponsored and assisted. Sponsored is they're participating, which those events are small, fewer, and it's typically just a meter bag. That was from the mayor's office. And assisted is really, like 4th of July is not assisted. I mean, it's not sponsored by Metro, and neither is New Year's. It is truly just, we need bodies to help. And so there is a difference between sponsored and assisted that the mayor's office wanted to make sure I clarify. So.
And I appreciate that. And I think, Chair, that's what I'm talking about. Like, what does assisted mean? What does co-sponsored mean? I'm just asking for a level of precision so that it is not, subjective or ambiguous to anybody who is encountering this process. And that's a full spectrum of folks, from small-scale nonprofits to our big Convention and Visitors Bureau. So my other suggestion, Chair, would be that this policy is waiving of parking fees specifically for special events. That's not in the subject of the policy, so I wanted to suggest that that be added as well. Again, colleagues, I mean, I would suggest it needs another turn.
Where is that specifically that you would like that change made? If you could be specific in your recommendations, that would be helpful to the other commissioners.
Yep, I've just made that specific suggestion, Chair.
Okay, but which of the items, A, B, C, D, E?
It's to the subject line of the policy name itself. The subject line is presently waiving of parking fees. I'm suggesting that it be waiving of parking fees for special events.
Okay, just making sure we're clear, that's all. Okay, all right.
So what do we need to do if we get our legal people with this motion that we have on the floor?
Well, what you could do is you could move to amend your motion to include the edits that have been discussed. That's obviously an option if someone wants to make that motion.
Can I make that motion, or does Commissioner Brown need to do that since he made the previous
But he
motion?
can make an amended motion if he's so inclined. If he doesn't want to, then the motion fails, then we start all over. And his motion would fail, we would start all over.
Or he could withdraw his motion, correct?
Yeah, you can withdraw his motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think the commissioner wants to withdraw his motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve this. I don't have the correct wording. I've gotten in trouble in the past with amending motions, so I need someone else to get the correct wording in the motion, please.
So I'm going to take a jump at this. Jason, you're going to help me. So the motion would include that we add to the subject line waiving of parking fees for special events. And also under the purpose to enact a policy for waiving of parking fees for special events. That would be the first change to the current policy that's before you. Then under item D in the policy, fees can be waived for events where assistance from Metro departments have been requested and approved. I'm taking out by event organizer has been requested and approved by Metro department director. That way for the smaller ones for bag meters and stuff, that would include that, but it would actually be driven by the departments and then approved through our department. But then again, it still goes back to the fact that we provide an annual list to y'all, and these events are pretty repetitive, so they're not like pop-ups. We know what events are going on. We'll be getting a list together. We're actually putting a list together to bring forward to y'all between now and the end of June for your consideration of approval, so we don't have to bother y'all out every single meeting with this. And then in June, we'll have a more thorough list for the entire year. Is that correct, council member? Did I get that more precise?
I do believe so. So I think at this juncture, we're not going to get into then defining supported, co-sponsored, et cetera, to avoid that confusion. And as I understand it, if we'll see it in June, and I guess we can ascertain at that time how that list looks and kind of what any variation within that list is, whether that be assistance, co-sponsorship, et cetera. I would be interested if that list would clarify. So when you bring that list to us annually, I don't think that has to be part of the motion, but I just want to express that here so that this commission can see what is the makeup and the scale of those events.
Yes, ma'am. We can definitely do that.
And then we can perhaps, Chair, at that time, kind of decide if the policy is written is sufficient to meet the needs and the concerns and address it then again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Legal counsel,
Yes, Chair.
one of our commissioners has a question about whether she has a particular conflict in voting on this matter.
I think if you have a conflict, the right thing, if you believe you have a conflict, just please recuse yourself.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for addressing that. All right.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Who's opposed? And we have one abstention. Okay. Commissioner Robbins abstained. Okay. Thank you. The next item is review and recommend to council proposed amendments to sidewalk vending ordinance. Okay. Mr. Odom, you going to be making that presentation?
That will be me, Chair. I'm gonna stand up.
Okay.
Would you like me to stand here? Or
Yes, stand, if you would stand, and please.
Okay, so in your packet, I'm Tara Ladd. I'm with Metro Legal. I'm standing in today for Ms. Costonis, who normally covers your board. In your packet, you should have a clean version of what the ordinance would look like once the changes are incorporated. Sometimes that's really hard to understand what changes are being made because you have to take the old one and look at the new one and then try to find out what's missing. So what we tried to do here to make it clear for you guys is to put a red line version together so you can see what language is new and what we're adding to the code versus what we're taking out of the code, and sort of give a little bit of justification as to why we're doing that. And so if you just start with the title of the ordinance. I'm going to wait for him to put can you put the red version up there, please? I think you should do, show all changes because it's not showing. We'll go ahead and get started, but what you're seeing now is actually, there you go, all new language. So what you're seeing in red is going to be new. The title is pretty clear cut on this, an ordinance amending the provisions of the chapter that are relevant to sidewalk vending, 6.104, 1308, 1332. That's your bread and butter for this commission. So in the whereas sections, this is where we discuss specifically why these regulations are important. And you have to remember as part of this board that your most important, what you're looking at is trying to make roadways and public right-of-ways as safe as possible. So that's what we're trying to keep in mind here when we read through these edits that we've made to this ordinance. Particularly the fact that our sidewalks have become so overcrowded that in public safety, we have to really make sure that we're being that we're taking action to make sure that pedestrians can move safely, vehicles can move safely, and so that's really what these edits were geared at. So the first whereas and the second and the third that is in red up there deal with the justification behind these changes, which you can read. I'm going to speak more to the changes that are lower in the body of the edits that we made to the actual code. So you can go, unless there's any questions about whereas 1, 2, or 3, then I'll go into the body of the ordinance. Okay, go ahead and scan down.
Please proceed.
Chair, may I just ask a quick question? For just as far as kind of just procedurally as how Ms. Ladd is going to progress through the resolution, just how we're going to engage as a commission, section by section, as she invited just now, or at the end?
Let me let Ms. Ladd finish her presentation.
Yes, so
and then we'll address that issue, please.
Okay, Chair, thank you.
So then obviously going through, you should make notes as to what you would recommend as changes, and so then I can put together a document with help from the staff to make sure that we capture all the changes, because what I'm going to be asking at the end is if you want to recommend this ordinance to the council. And you can also, obviously, you can recommend it as it's been written, or you can recommend it with changes that you wish to incorporate. So it's something to think about as we're going through some of these. And I don't want to belabor it because I know that you want to have a robust discussion about what it says here. So if you look at the first section, section 1, that we're deleting chapter 6.104, the reason why we're deleting that is because that's an antique code section that's no longer used, that speaks to farmers having to sell their own crops if they're going to come downtown to sell their crops. So haven't seen that happening in a long time. We thought it was probably a good time to go ahead and clean some of these provisions up. So you're going to see references to that section in its entirety being deleted. Now, if you go down to section 1308.040, that is where the meat of the changes are going to be. And this is, again, where we were trying to be very mindful of public safety and how we edited these provisions. So the first thing you're going to see is that we've added platform and table. And here we're just trying to make that provision a little bit more broader to encompass creative types of stands being used downtown to sell things. And so that's what that was used for. And if you're going through this and you see our language and something else comes to mind that you've seen that you think, well, maybe it should say that as well, then please write it down and bring it to our attention, my attention when you're done. The next change is going to be in BA. That starts any street vendor operating without a proper license. And we added an and there because they need a license and potentially and a permit. And then at the end, we added vending in an approved location and not interfering with the movement of vehicular or pedestrian traffic or creating an an unsafe condition. And again, this language strengthens the ability of Indot and our police department to be able to ensure that traffic is safely flowing on the streets and on the sidewalks, and it's going to give them a little bit more leeway to help with those type of issues. You go down to B. you'll see that we added stationary or mobile. Again, these changes are made for the same reason as the previous ones I explained. We're just trying to catch everything that we feel like could potentially fall into this category. And we're also adding that safety buzz language at the end of the section. If you go down to C, that's the solicitation of donations by nonprofits. And the only thing we've done here is just, and this was at the request of our police department, is put a provision in there that says you need to be able to show that you are a nonprofit, so that if you're asked, you have identification and you can show us that you do in fact qualify for that exception. D was stricken, as I said, because 6.104 is no longer used. And then E was deleted because that section 1336.020 was deleted back in 2012. So and it's regarding auxiliary club markets, which again are not relevant anymore. And then F was deleted because if something like this is being done, an organization or program is having some sort of event, there's no reason why that event can't be kept inside of the venue. So that's why we deleted F. Now moving down to definitions, and I'm on to obstruct, section B. We added or such that any unsafe condition results. So again, bolstering emphasis on public safety here, giving us that ability to make changes and to take action when we know that there's a threat to public safety. C, we added other public property. That's not much of a material change worth discussing, but again, if you have any questions, let me know. Now I'm down to G, which is the definition of stand, and we included a stand that's suspended from a vendor's person, because apparently that's been done downtown, and so we wanted to make sure, again, that we're capturing all those variables that we've seen. Now on page 5, section 3, it's unlawful, starting with it's unlawful for vendors or goods or services not meeting the exception. For this one, we added that those who engage in such conduct without having and displaying a valid permit, or while their permit is suspended, revoked, or expired, may be prosecuted for violation of Tennessee Code annotated 3917-307 and or TCA 6230-101. And we did this because, recall, if they don't have a permit from us already and they're vending, we can't take action as a commission. So we're putting those TCA provisions in there to make sure that anyone who's vending is aware that there are state law provisions that also prevent the same conduct. And so those are specifically two provisions that do prohibit the same conduct that we're sort of trying to get at in this section.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, the code provisions?
No, what you just said about state law.
Oh, yeah, so there are 2 state law provisions that speak directly to prohibiting this same type of conduct. And I have more information on those 2 laws. If anyone wants them, I can send the information out just so you have an idea of how they read. And you can wrap your head around them and sort of digest them after. Section A just really cleans up what is required for an application, and that it adds that the county clerk may require additional information to confirm eligibility of the applicant, again, allowing the county clerk some flexibility should they decide that they want to include some other qualification that they want to look at. And you'll see that we deleted E, which was for a temporary permit, and we're no longer going to offer a temporary permit option because we want all vendors to be treated the same. And so if a regular vendor has to have a permit and has to have a license, and so should a person who's temporarily selling. That's why we did that. That's why we made that change, to make sure that, all vendors are being treated the same and having uniform requirements when vending. I is not really of substance. Point 2 we added substance, and we expanded this to include reference in case state law changes. And when we say substance, what we're really getting at is like the CBD sort of things, and its potential that the state law is going to change and might give the health department some authority to regulate those kinds of substances. So we wanted to go ahead and sort of get a jump on that being a possibility. Again, right now it's not, but we wanted to put that in there so we're not constantly going back in and tinkering. F, we wanted to make sure that the liability insurance is maintained throughout the annual permitting period. We just wanted to make it more clear that that was one of the requirements. And it's very clear that if they don't maintain that insurance, then their permit can terminate. And that their certificate of insurance has to be with their application in order to be considered. If you go to G, the applicant will not be allowed to reapply for an application for a 12-month period was added for any intentional misrepresentation. And that just really pinpoints the time period for which an applicant would have to wait to reapply. It just sort of spells it out a little bit more. If you look at 4, we increased the annual permit fee to $800. This was Indot staff looked at what's the actual cost of the whole situation, what really goes into it, what staff has to touch this, work on this to make this happen, and that's the figure that we came up with. The $800 is going to authorize one location with a $75 ID badge, and then if they were to add another stand, because there's people that have multiple stands, they'd have to pay, the $800 per stand, and so that's what that paragraph says, and that wording is to prevent vendors from getting one permit and try to use it as a basis to run multiple stands, which is what's currently happening. Moving along, we're down to J on my page 7, and that speaks to incomplete applications can be denied if the applicant doesn't include everything that they are required to include. 2I just speaks to having the certificate of insurance. And 3, it's just found to be non-compliant with the provision of the section, can have their permit denied. And these are just really civil offenses, so we were just trying to get the wording right on that as to when we can deny them for something that they've done as far as permitting is concerned. IV, you'll see that we picked up substances again, and I talked a little bit about why we picked up that language. You'll see again, we deleted the section for temporary permits because we're not offering that. Now I'm on page 7, part C, that talks about how the county clerk will notify a vendor if they've been approved or denied a permit. And we're just cleaning that up because the county clerk would prefer an oral notification in lieu of a written notification, and how long the permit should be valid for, as long as no disciplinary action has been taken against the applicant and they haven't committed any violations of this section. So we're at 6A, and this is where we really talk about where vending is going to be permitted or prohibited. And this talks about the specific streets for which a vendor cannot be. So
Ms. Ladd, just point of order, what page, or I'm trying to look back and forth to my packet, red line.
If you could make a reference, please, to the page number you're on when you get to a section. They're down at the bottom.
I'm on page 8 of mine.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys have the same.
Yes, Mr.
So there's two versions here. There's one that we've received two versions of this document, one that has the edits included, and then the other that has the final document. So they're both different pages. So if you're going by the one that shows the comments, that's going to be page 9.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit, the one with the comments is a little meatier.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. So for this section, as I was stating, the sale of goods or services by street vendors is limited to the DTC and the CF zone districts, provided, however, that no such sales may occur in the following areas, and it delineates the specific streets from street to street. Now I'm looking at section 6A. Yes.
Yes, okay, 6.
We're just page 8 and 9. 6A. All right.
All right, you guys find me now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
All
You
right.
could just guide us along. We're not trained lawyers.
Hey, this is nothing to do with being a lawyer. This is just having multiple documents. It gets a little confusing, so just bear with me here. All right, this also allows you guys in the future, if you want to create a no vending map, instead of saying from street A to street B, you can create a map and you can just, say no vending on locations identified in this map. And this code section gives you the authority to do that. Now I'm on page 9. The top of page 9 starts, each street vendor must prominently display the permit. It also says that the applicable health permit, if they're selling food, must be displayed as well. And that any vending operations in violation can be removed by Indot and by the police department. And this, again, enhances public safety in coordination with the health department. Section F that's been completely stricken was because it's duplicative. That's the section I was just talking about that identifies the areas where vending will not be prohibited or will not be allowed. Section G, we just cleaned up the language. Section J, you'll see that we struck that 6.104 language again that's no longer used. Again, same with
I
section.
apologize, Ms. Ladd, just point of order again. I lost my place, so if we could just pause. Are you, as you narrate, are you referring to the red line document?
Yes.
Okay. And so what page of the red line document are you on at this juncture?
I'm at the top of page 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think 6K is all right, right?
6K.
Thank you.
K, we wanted to make sure that we incorporated the safety clearance that's required of the code for driveways, and that it says we also will be able to designate appropriate clearances for other features. This commission will. Now, 6I states that the vending permits issued under the section will be suspended during any special event, and those.
11 now. Okay, sorry. Excuse me.
No, you're good. So let's talk a little bit about K. A vendor shall promptly, comply with an order of an officer of the Metropolitan Police Department. So here, again, with public safety in mind, It puts an obligation on the vendor to comply with an order of Metro Police, the fire department, or employee of Indot to temporarily move to another location when necessary to accommodate heavy pedestrian or vehicular traffic, obstructions, emergency situations, demonstrations, things of that nature that require that person to move sort of ASAP. So it gives us that ability. C1, which I'm still on page 10, we added "or its staff." So it says any permit issued under this section may be suspended or revoked by the commission or its staff. And we specifically added "or its staff" so that the staff can take certain actions, and that way the appeal can come to the commission. So you're not, taking an action and handling your own appeal. The staff can review, and then the staff, if the applicant chooses to either appeal their, if the staff chooses to appeal, or the applicant appeals their denial of an application, or they choose to appeal any sort of punishment that was perhaps imposed upon them, then those appeals would come to you guys.
Chair, if I might suggest, so C1 was on page 7 of the document that this commission first received and is online. So I guess I'm trying to think, just as we move to the end of this document, I don't think our numeration on our red line is the same as the numeration on your version, Ms. Ladd, because so if you would just, before speaking about something, if you could just pause, so if you're in section C, number 1, if you would just give us a minute to reorient and catch up with each section you're speaking to, I think that would be helpful to us, because I've got the initial document that I made my notes on. I'm very glad to see this red line, but that's for the first time. And
Great.
So I'm trying to go back and forth, and what I'm finding is I'm losing where we are almost every single time. So if you would just take a pause and maybe see if the commission is caught up to where you are before explicating that particular section, please.
Absolutely, and I apologize for any confusion. So we were just looking at C2, which is on your packet page 11. The red line on your packet page 11. Now I'm going to go over to page 12. And the next time you'll see an edit on page 12 would be C3. And again, you're going to see that same language picked up, or its staff, which is giving the authority again to the staff to do things for the commission. Paragraph 4 just held permit holder or applicant. And it's, again, this is speaking to the fact that an applicant or a permit holder has the ability to appeal a decision made by staff or the commission, for what that's worth. So those are all the changes on page 12. So now I'm going to turn it over to page 13. E is penalties. E1. No, E1. And you'll see with this section, you guys with me? All right, with this section, everyone knows that violations of, at this point probably, that violations of the code is $50 per day for every day of continuing violation. And that's still true, but what we wanted to do was put in language there that in the event, for some reason, that wasn't true, to the extent it's permitted by law at some point, that we would have other ways to penalize vendors for being in violation of this section. So you'll see there's a first offense, a second offense, a third offense, fourth, and where those penalties, who will assess the penalties, which will be you, and where those payments would be made.
And that's daily?
No, that would not be daily. Actually, I'll ask staff what they had in mind with this, but that was not my understanding. First offense, one offense, $250. Second offense within 1 year. The way I read it, it would be $250 for the one offense, not a repeating violation.
That is correct. It is per offense, not per day.
Thank you. All right.
All right, section 3 is at the bottom of page 13. And this is language, this particular paragraph is different from the one that we were discussing because this is picking up on a new code section. And this just really speaks to the inability of any person to obstruct public ways with abandoned property or any of those things that are enumerated in that section. It gives the fire department, Indot, and it gives the Metro Nashville Police Department the authority to remove any of those obstructions. And it penalizes the person who's left the obstructions there by saying they have to pay the expense of what it costs to move those or to remove those obstructions, the storage and the administrative costs. And then you have a definition down there of what personal property is and subject to a creature permit. No, that's just, if you have any further questions about that section down there, let me know. I'm on the last section now, which is 1332-105 at the bottom of page 14, and this is a new section. And this section is piggybacking on the one that's right above it that talks about what we would do if we picked up property or removed property from the public right away, you know, how it will be treated. If it's perishable, we can get rid of it. We'll make reasonable efforts to notify the property owner, but the director of Indot will have the ultimate authority to make regulations to address the procedure for property removal, forfeiture, sale, and redemption. And that the owner seeking to get their property back shall pay the Metropolitan government's reasonable costs incurred in removal and storage at the time of recovery. So I know that was kind of a bumpy ride with the page numbers. And again, I was trying to be abbreviated because I understand that you want to discuss this code section. But please, if anything wasn't clear when you're having your deliberations or you want to discuss anything in further detail, let me know.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, let me get some feedback from you all about where you stand before we proceed, because I know that people got a little confused as we went through here. So, yes, Mr. Taylor.
I think we're in a good place, and I would like to move forward just to further discuss some details and in some of the areas that were discussed.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So, Ms. Ladd, was there anyone else that was going to provide some details about the document that we should reference? Is it someone from staff?
No, there's not.
Okay. All right, let me ask this question. How many people in the audience were here to speak to this issue? If you could raise your hand, please, so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we have people who'd like to speak. If y'all had a chance to review the document as it was posted. Okay. So, with Commissioner's blessing, I think I'd like to get some comments from the audience who came here for this, and let's see what their comments are, and then we can then have a discussion. Okay? All right. So, you in the blue suit, I'll just pick you first since you're in the front row. I think you'd raise your hand. And if you would just make sure you clearly state your name for the record so we can get it recorded correctly. Okay? Thank you for coming.
Is this working? Okay. My name is Luke Riley. I've been a hot dog vendor and food vendor in the downtown area.
Mind of the time limit?
Yes, we got 3 minutes.
Okay.
Please.
I will make my
Thank you, officer.
specific addresses fast. Firstly, I think that I can understand the congestion on the middle of downtown Broadway area being There's a lot of heavy foot traffic and a lot of vehicular traffic as well. I think there's a lot of adjacent streets that don't necessarily need this ordinance, and I say that because I've been operating on most of them for the past year with my stands, and I've treated it in a way where I'm not a police officer or anything, I'm just an observant civilian, and I have a vested interest in keeping the city nice. I was born and raised here, and I'm willing to help grow the city for a long time, the rest of my life. And I think that the downtown is where a lot of problems and great things can start as well. So I think that keeping downtown a nice area specifically is in everybody's best interest, and I've done my part, I believe, to facilitate that within this past year. And I think that it would be a shame to take away a lot of the vendors and small businesses that are down there that also have the same goals and same kind of priorities that I have. I've spoken with a lot of them, and I think a lot of people really do care about the downtown area and about the people in it. There's definitely a lot of other problems, but there always are. I think especially with a city like this that's growing this fast, there's good and bad problems that come along with it. And that is my main focus, and I think that there are certain other things that I would address if there were not such a time constraint. But I think the main sentiment is that it would be unfortunate to not be able to talk with the city more about what we could do ordinance-wise as far as our part with the vendors, because I know personally I would love the opportunity to talk more with specific people in charge of this and see what could be done to perhaps not push the vending so far away from the downtown area so that it stays viable for people like myself and for the other vendors. And there are other certain things I could talk about, like perhaps the time ordinance and things like that, not being able to vend after 2. And I only say that because after 2, things get particularly, there's a lot that happens in downtown specifically and around Nashville as well, especially late at night. So I think that within that time frame, I've personally noticed a lot of things going on in which I've intervened and seen and had to talk with police and had to talk with people and had to diffuse situations with the public. I think that especially when the bars close and it's late at night and a lot more people are a lot more intoxicated, there are a lot more issues. So I think there are other fine details like that that I would love to address with officials in a further capacity, but due to the time constraints, I think that that is my general sentiment at this time.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Who's next, please?
Am I live?
Yeah. Yes.
My name's Finn Shannon III. I'm a vendor downtown Nashville. I just got a couple of things I'd like to throw at you. One, I thought at some point we had taken measurements of the downtown area in the way of sidewalks and front doors to businesses that allowed us to set up in these areas that y'all are restricting. But at some point it was okay to if you were 5 feet from the door, 7 feet from the corner of the sidewalk, that worked. If I'm not mistaken, did that work or no? Someone, anyone? Did that system work? I don't know. I don't know if I'm out of line or.
I think that's a question for the police.
Okay. Is there somebody to answer that?
Just point of order, Chair. That's not how public comment works, sir. You don't ask questions of us. We're listening to you.
And then we'll get to some of the questions that people have raised.
Okay.
Please, sir, just proceed ahead.
Okay. So then I move forward to, have y'all considered a grandfather clause to stop giving out so many permits to congest the area? Is that viable? Can I ask that?
Sir, if you just make your presentation and if you're making questions, we're noting your questions. Just please proceed ahead, okay?
Okay, then I think I'm done.
All right, thank you.
I'm done. That was my attempt. I'll do more research to figure this out.
Who's next, please?
I may have heard we're hindered. My fault.
My name is John Newman. I'm a vendor downtown. Been vending for the past year and a half. Recently, we got our permits renewed for our entire company. After reviewing this ordinance, I find it extremely troublesome to see that it's specifically laid out to where we cannot vend, and there has not been a lot of conversation to discuss where we can. Just with my company in general, I believe if this ordinance takes place, vending will go away. From my review, we'll probably have 75-ish families affected through this lack of income. So I do feel like it's very ill-advised to enforce this, pass this through traffic and parking without fully discussing and laying out measures where we can. I will say that I've had multiple conversations with officers downtown that are really for vending. They just want strict perimeters where they can enforce things, and I think that they see that there's not really a traffic problem from the ones that I've talked to. With that being said, I think when you put 8th Avenue to Union and Cumberland, that's a wide area, and vendors rely on foot traffic to operate and be profitable. And when you do that, you really eliminate any chance of success in a business. And this is a small business deal, and it's a big attack on that. And there's a lot of families, single mothers, that are trying to make ways for their children the right way. And by doing this, you really hinder that. But I think before anything should proceed, there should be conversations on where locations are allowed, especially after the city county clerk accepts money for permits, time. I think it's just irresponsible. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Who's next, please?
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is John Bechtel. I am one of the downtown vendors. Firstly, I want to thank those who have Nashvillians' best interests at heart, those few who haven't sold out to Apple in the corporate world. Over the last 10 years of Nashville's explosion, the current government has consistently chosen big business and out-of-town corporations over helping local Nashvillian business people. And they're doing it again with this ordinance, which is nothing less than the absolute obliteration of more than 500 small business people in downtown Nashville, which seems to be a theme in America right now. At the last meeting over on the East Precinct, we all agreed, and the woman to my right over here specifically, who was in control of drafting the ordinance, specifically said that the vendors and the business people and the commission would all get together and draft an ordinance together, that we would all have input on this. That was not done. And here we are with an ordinance drafted by Nashville alone, without any input from vendors, without any input from business people downtown. You've just made your own ordinance. We talked about doing a vending down by First Avenue in a vendor's village down there, or designated circles up and down Broadway. So there were specific spots that vending was able to occur. And as John stated before, all you're telling us is where we can't do it and what we can't do and what the fines are and what the offenses are. You're making this all negative. There's no positivity at all toward where we can do stuff, where we can offer services, where we can offer wonderful handmade bracelets that women who are in recovery are down there making. And they have been for 12 years now. And you want to just kick them to the curb and just throw it all away. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So you guys drafted your own ordinance, effectively making vending monetarily pointless and legally impossible. I don't know how many of you really know what's going on here, but this is actually just a transfer of wealth from the small business people to the people that already run Broadway and make all the money. Vendors rented from the parking lots owned by the big business owners. They kicked us out of those lots, put their own vending in, and now are trying to outlaw any other vending and using Metro to enforce it. And that's fascism, plain and simple. When business and government collide and use the police to wipe out other business people, that's called fascism. And that we don't do that in America. In addition to making it worthless by not allowing vending on or near Broadway, they have made it impossible for others. Not only does the ordinance make it impossible, not only does the ordinance raise the vendor's fees more than 400% to $800, that's 400% in a recession. And remember, folks, this is the same government that raised our property taxes 35% during COVID. I see a theme here.
Thank you, sir, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who's next, please?
Hi, my name's Matthew Edwards. I am a vendor downtown. Is it on? Okay. Matthew Edwards, vendor downtown. Essentially, I have statements, but there are also questions that I hope that you all will pose among yourselves. The fee from $100 to $800, I think that's an 800% increase. This is supposed to cover the DTF, or the DTC, or the downtown corridor. I am curious as to what percentage of that downtown corridor is actually available for vending post this ordinance that would correlate with an 800% increase in the fees or permits in order to regulate that. Also, the definitions allowing someone to just randomly decide what is an unsafe condition, I think is vague terminology. So because somebody thinks there are a lot of people on the sidewalk, you have to move. That just seems like a determination that is rife with conflict. Essentially, looking at a map that was created using pedestrian injury that has nothing to do with vending as how we are going to create a map that excludes, I'm just spitballing here, but I'd say 85 to 90% of the downtown corridor is restricted from vending here, according to this. So what are we paying for? So we're going to pay an increase for enforcement that we're not allowed to actually vend anywhere. Some of these things just don't make sense. And some of the definitions are still, what we came here to do was clarify. And I don't think anybody sat through that and felt like things were more clear than when we started. So I would say send this back to the drawing board. Let's come up with something a little bit better that involves maps, clarity, and areas that you can vend. You can't increase 800% and not tell me where I can vend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next, please?
Hi, Benjamin Eagles, representing Mayor Cooper's office. Thank you all for your time today and your thoughtful consideration of this ordinance. Want to show particular appreciation for all the staff time, both Metro Legal and MNPD, as well as the fire department, and of course our staff at Indot, all the work that has gone into this over many months and since we were last at the precinct. I want to remind you all that of course, this issue was first raised by the police department as we think of the downtown and our obligation to provide a safe and a clean and a well-functioning downtown. The idea that this originated with the police department and is not a political issue, I think should be on the top of all our minds. This is, for anyone who's spent time downtown, a pretty obvious safety and quality of life concern. Not everyone in this body, I imagine, and not everyone on Metro Council, when we hopefully eventually present this ordinance there, spends time downtown, especially late at night. But I have been down there recently to check it out, and it's everything that you've heard it is in terms of a blockage, an impediment to a right-of-way, a safety concern for pedestrians. This is a well-founded concern. Our obligation is to the public and is to protect the public's right-of-way. We've heard a lot before, and you'll continue to hear from people who have an interest, a private interest, in extracting a private financial value and interest from the public right-of-way. But our interest, the police's interest, and the Department of Transportation's interest and role is to protect the public's right-of-way. And this ordinance will greatly improve safety and quality of life and the flow of pedestrians downtown. So this is something that our police, our transportation experts on staff, downtown residents, and business owners have all asked for and worked hard on over the course of many months. And I want to thank you for your consideration of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, anyone who's next? Yes, please step forward.
Okay. Ainsley Daniels, Director of Loss Prevention at the Moxie, down on 3rd and Broad. Thank you for your consideration and for your time. I know that this is a very emotional issue for several individuals. I did want to speak, being that we are the only hotel right there in the very dead center of it, we have an interesting perspective. We have what are called GSS surveys, our guests, what our guests leave us, the reviews, things like that. We get several comments every single time about how much downtown has changed, and not necessarily for the better. They talk about excessive vending. They talk about constantly being approached, not just by vagrant population, but by, I can't speak to anybody necessarily that's here, but as people that meet the definitions as mentioned in this new rule that was put forth. There's a real concern among several of the downtown businesses, and I speak on that because I've been to every single meeting since this has come forward, about not just the pedestrian safety and wanting to make sure that we have the sidewalks clear, making sure that we want to make sure that everybody's able to get where they go, but also because there was numerous complaints about the quality of like from food vending. We have numerous pictures. We have numerous things that were provided from Metro. Things just were not up because there's no way it could be up to par with the health department, things along those lines. People just kind of were coming and going. And since this has been going on, this new, when it was allowed to move forward, I've noticed actually a decrease. Before this, of course, has come forward as an ordinance. Downtown has actually been a lot better, in my opinion. I know that people have asked about, they're here late at night, and maybe they can, I guess what I'm getting to the implication is that they can maybe help stop issues that are happening. I would like to mention that an untrained individual intervening in an intoxicated individual's issues, that can actually be more dangerous. As far as, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. I would say really quick that it would be beneficial for the vendors to have a more clear idea of where they can and cannot vend. I think that is very fair, so that they know where they can do business and where they cannot. But mostly the gist of all this is that from the hospitality perspective is that people are noticing that downtown is going in decline, and part of that has been the vending situation. That's all.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Thank you. Are we good? All right, thanks. Sorry. Chronic cough. That's it. I'm Tom Turner. I'm with the Nashville Downtown Partnership. Here to express support for the vending regulations from where we are now and from where we were.
The partnership, the area within the downtown code is the downtown partnership. I did a quick math calculation. More than 80% of the area within the downtown code is still available for vending should someone decide to do so. And there was also a question about prior zones. I'll say when those zones were written, we had 2,000 residents downtown. Now we have 16,000. At the time, we had 43,000 employees. Now we have 78,000. We had under 8 million annual visitors to downtown. Now we have more than 16 million. And you may not be surprised, but the sidewalks have not changed in size. So there is definitely a congestion issue with vendors and blocking the sidewalks. Additionally, the unregulated vendors have really forced people to walk into the street. A number of vendors are there with no regard for trash. They do push questionable items for consumption. Get out your Giggle Box here, weed vendors, penis waffles, everything that you want to see down there you can get. And they often contribute to a really unkept appearance downtown. We fully support further boundary adjustments in the future, contemplated in the ordinance. And I'll tell you why. The area inside of the downtown code, but not covered under this square area. Today, there are 23 cranes in that specific area. They represent more than $2.2 billion worth of construction. And the projects that are in the works right now, again, that area downtown, but not within the confines of the zone as currently established. Future projects are $3.9 billion. My math will get 39 cranes. So there's a significant amount of development taking place outside of that box, if you will. So the need to further adjust these down the line is incredibly important. And I really appreciate the opportunity to provide input and the work that you all do. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Think you're the last one?
Hi, my name's Chase Howard. I'm one of the downtown vendors. Thank you all so much for your time. I do have two questions. One in terms of referencing what does and does not constitute vending. In terms of, say, the downtown scooters like Lime and Bird, just through my own conversation with MNPD and local tourism and individuals that work downtown Broad, they've found that those constitute more of a safety hazard than a stationary object that's, almost at eye height, such as a stand or cart. Those being at almost ankle height appear to be more of a safety concern in that regard. My other question more relates to general safety concerns. When we're focused on what is and is not a safe or appropriate environment for downtown Nashville, I do think it's important for us to remember that a lot of what is being discussed is also in terms of bad actors, such as the younger children that sell candy bars under the guise of raising money for a basketball team, which in actuality is just used as a front for them to peddle drugs. Those being so prevalent in those highly trafficked areas is often mistaken for what would otherwise be a legal vendor. And to confuse those two, I think, is a mistake. I don't know that there's a way that we could justify wiping out an entire population of potential profitability in business when it's more so an issue with being able to determine who is and is not the bad actors and being able to work around removing said issue rather than harming all properly operating business in the process.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, please step forward.
is Brenda Sanderson. I'm a resident downtown and also a business owner. I wasn't going to speak, but it's hard not to when you hear some of the things that's been talked about. And a couple of really quick points I want to make about jobs and people losing their jobs. Have any of you been down a street or to a business in the last year that you haven't seen a request for workers? So granted, some of the folks may not be doing the job they were doing last week, but there are so many jobs available, so that can't be a reason for not moving forward with this ordinance. I want us to think about just limiting the way this city handles people operating businesses on public property. What if we all did that? I have businesses, we rent locations, we employ a lot of people. We don't take it out on the street. So think about that. People operating private businesses on public property. One last point for public safety. At the corner, for instance, of 5th and Broadway, it's probably at 4th and Broadway, probably two of the busiest intersections, certainly in the city, in the state, very well, two of them in the entire country. I've seen vendors with open flames, propane tanks, and hundreds of people around them. That's a safety issue. That scares the daylights out of me, and it should scare the daylights out of everybody else too. So let's come up with a spot where they can vend. It doesn't need to be in the busiest area of the city. I know they want to be there. I get that. But it's just not a safe place to do it. Anyway, I would also, as a owner and resident, answer any questions you all had as well, because you might want to know something that none of us have said. But thank you all. I appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that's the last person, so we're going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments, questions? Yes. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again to Ms. Ladd for going through this document so diligently. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of staff's work on this. I appreciate the stakeholders who've attended previous meetings, everybody here today. And I think, Chair, I have read through this one time before we got here, top to bottom, and made notes. And that's everything from, typos to questions to suggestions about how we might do something another way. And so I guess, my question comes in, this document went online about Monday at 2:30. That's when we received it. So it's kind of been out in the public view for that week. I didn't get to review it until kind of after close of business on Friday. This is pretty significant policy change from my perspective as the council member colleagues that'll have to carry this bill when we get over to the council side. I do want citizens and interested folks here to understand that this will be a 3-reading ordinance at council with a public hearing. So as far as that process goes, I want folks to understand that. But even so, Chair, and I'll await the, other comments or discussion of the commission. I think it would be worthwhile to defer this one more meeting, just to address, again, things all the way down to just kind of typographical errors and so forth, because I really can't see how we could make a motion that would address all of those things.
All right.
So I would move a one-meeting deferral.
All right. We have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on this motion, please?
I guess I'm still a little bit confused, Commissioner and council person, about what we're going to tweak versus what the council's going to do. As we move this forward, which I assume we will do to the council, I mean, does it matter? What we're going to do is going to change substantially versus what the committee work does in council. I just need some help.
I appreciate that. I think as far as, the establishment of a fee structure, permissive zones versus inclusive zones. So, things like typographical stuff, we can correct that on the council side. That said, I think, I know as council member, for legislation like this, everything from, parking policy to our valet to this, I think the council is expecting a certain level of review from this commission, and such that there are not outstanding kind of major questions as to content or approach once it gets to council. So while I think council would perfectly understand a level of review once it gets to us as to kind of legal precision, order of the document, clarity, all that kind of stuff. I think that can absolutely, understandably, be worked out on the back end. But my thought is there is still maybe some debate that needs to be had as it relates to how we do the map, where we allow the level of analysis. Mr. Turner asserted, 80% of the downtown code is still available for vending. I mean, I'd like to be able to have the time to discuss, is that in fact true? So the more substantive things, Commissioner, are what I'm hoping to get at in the intervening month.
Any commissioners have any other comments concerning what's been presented today?
I think I would suggest to the council members' comments to specify some of those items in this motion so that when we come back next month, we're in a position to move this forward to the next step with all of the attention and things that are going on with this so that we can articulate and be able to make a decision next month to make a decision.
Any other commissioners with comment? Yes,
I
Commissioner
agree
Robbins.
with Commissioner Mason, and one of the things that has always been ambiguous to me is if we are to change where people vend, having just a larger area, if it's 80% of the core, I feel like we need to be more specific. What I heard today was that there is still a lot of ambiguity in the vendor community about what they do. I don't understand the process, if that's supposed to be attached to this ordinance or not, but I feel personally that it should be. I don't know if that's how it works, if we're supposed to be able to see. I mean, this first came to us as a moratorium on vending, and I couldn't really agree to that because we didn't have another backup plan, and I thought in this interim that the community was going to be able to have some input, and if they have, that's great. I'm not getting that sense that that's what's happened today, and I would just prefer to see a map, a zone, something else that's attached to this ordinance, in addition to a couple of other questions that were raised today that, would make this less confusing for everyone.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Wood.
I certainly understand and appreciate that. I think what my concern is what this commission is supposed to do. And as I understand, we're to address pedestrian safety and road calming kinds of issues. And when the police come to us about pedestrian safety, I'm not, my heart goes out, if you're talking about a job change, but this commission doesn't do that. we can certainly encourage you, but I think somebody from the mayor's office is here. There are other places that you can talk to about jobs and where you go or what you're doing with. I don't think this commission is responsible for finding a place for you to vend. We're supposed to do pedestrian safety. And I understand what your issues are, but I don't know if that needs to come from legal, from the mayor's office. But if we're coming up to hear your alternative plans or the director of Indot, I'm not sure that's what we do, Mr. Chair. Can someone help me? We would love to say, here's a great wish list, but this is a legal question and something for the mayor's office.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Chair. I look at this and from a standpoint, if I were a property owner and had a business on Lower Broad, I'm paying rent, taxes, or mortgage payments. And people trying to come into my business, and somebody rolls up with a buggy selling hot dogs, and people can't get in, and they're not paying any taxes, they're not paying any rent. That's my concern for the property owners.
Taxes and rent.
Yeah, those aren't, you're not saying.
Excuse me, please. Okay, thank you.
Another point of public safety, if someone in here, and I believe someone said they are aware of small children being used to see drugs, how many policemen are we in here with? You need to go to them right now and tell them that.
All right, excuse me. I'm going to request no comments from the audience, please. Thank you. Okay. Any other commissioners comment?
Yeah, my other question was, if we were to defer this motion, if we were to make a motion to defer the edits on this document for one more week, how are we to describe or give out our specific edits of this document to the staff or to whoever is specifically drafting this document?
I think what's been discussed is a deferral for a month. That's the motion on the floor. And I think there questions been raised by other commissioners about specific content because I think people are looking for some guidance about what, if we come back and look at this next month, what is the exact language that we're going to be looking at? Is it going to be this cleaned up, or is it going to be this with things excluded out, put in, etc.? So, legal counsel, do you have?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback, Chair, on your comment. And to answer your question, at some point you're going to have to deliberate these terms. I mean, you cannot, as a body, give us 15 different edits and us incorporate when you're all maybe editing the same paragraph. Like, that's not going to work. I mean, you're going to have to engage in robust deliberations on specific topics, and from that, either agree to what's written or come to a consensus on how that provision should be amended. And then at that point, if once we get through the body of the document, if you agree to make a recommendation of this document to council, then council can do as Councilmember Henderson suggested. They're probably going to tear it up a little bit too. They're going to tinker it here. They're going to tinker it there. And from this whole collaboration, it's going to become what it becomes. But that doesn't take away from how important your role is, right? Because they want to see a recommendation from this body that it's been reviewed, that you have confidence in it, that you've looked at it from a safety perspective, that you feel good about it, that you've deliberated on it, right? So these are just all, this is how the process works. So if you don't start deliberations today, that's completely fine with what the motion's on the table, but keep in mind that that means that your next meeting, you can come in with comments, but you're still going to have to deliberate on the provisions. The only other thing I wanted to say, and this is in response to Commissioner Robbins, there is a specific provision as to where they can be, and that's in section 6A, which we could put on a map for you. I suppose it would be kind of easy to chart in a map. But it says...
Which page number of the markup?
All right.
Yeah, let's go back to the, because I've got this.
Yeah, it's the...
Page 8.
Yeah, it's top of page 9, actually, of the markup with the formatting on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And so it starts, the sale of goods or services by street vendors is limited to the DTC and the CF zone district, provided, however, that no such sales may occur in the area, and then it lists streets. So between Union and Korean Vets, spanning from the Cumberland River to 8th, or Symphony Place between 3rd Avenue South and 4th Avenue South, or the John Siegenthaler Pedestrian Street Bridge. And so it might be easier for you to see that on a piece of paper in a map version. That might be more clarifying. I understand that, but it is sort of spelled out in there. It just, maybe it's hard to wrap your head around reading it, right? So that's in there for your consideration. Also, the other thing I would point out is that we did have meetings with members of the public, and that's something that Indot can speak to, how many times we had meetings. I just wanted to put it out there that they did do their due diligence in that.
Okay, so what we have right now is we have a motion to defer that has a second. However, in that motion, based on your comments, there's been no, I'm just going to use the term specificity offered as to what items might need to be enhanced, improved, deleted, removed. Except I don't know what the exact phrase is to use. Because basically this motion would just
You're just kicking
punt it till November 14th, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think some members are looking for some specificity. Yes, Commissioner Mason.
It sounds like we need to discuss the entire document at some point, or at least what we are not clear on or want to change. So can we set a plan, like next meeting we're going to take off these sections, or how are we going to achieve this over the next month as a group so that we can come here and deliberate and have some clear vocabulary for this?
So I think what I want to try to do is get some feedback from commissioners here about, I think a map would help, even though there's boundary lines that are clearly marked out. And maybe I think a specification about the process, more, I'll call it an English language version of the process. It says step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever that may be. Clarity laid out exactly as to the fees and the fines, even though I know it's laid out in the document. But I'm just trying to address some of the issues. If you give me a minute, please, Councilman, that have been laid out that would help with going through this. And has that been helpful at all?
I mean, the other option is if you didn't want to make it a regular meeting, you could do a special called meeting that's dedicated solely to this ordinance.
That was going to be my next point, Chairman, because I do believe that, whenever more than two individuals in this committee meet together, it would be considered a public meeting, and therefore the public would have to be present. So, if we are going to move forward with this document and do not want to deliberate right now, some of these issues we have on hand, then I think the next step would be to have a what was the term, legal?
A special called meeting.
A special called meeting where we could have, and we can all come prepared with the documents that we're requesting from Indot and staff. I believe that's one option. The other option that I would pose to my commissioners here would be just to deliberate this document right here, right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Just as a question, if you could answer the question, what's the notice required for a specially called meeting? Just so we can answer that question that's been laid out. Does anyone know?
I can
Is
get it.
2
I believe
weeks?
it's a week. I believe it's a week. I can get it, though.
Okay. All right.
Or if we move to vote no on the deferral, then we could come back and discuss all this right now.
You could just start your deliberations,
Okay,
and
right.
then if you get to a point where you are done for the day, then you hold them in advance.
All right. Well, this is what I think I'm going to suggest. We have a motion. We have a first and a second. We've had some discussion. Let's take the motion to defer for a month to a vote. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion as presented and seconded, say aye.
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 No.
I'm at my, no.
Oh, okay. So we have, if I could get a show of hands of who is yes and who's no, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 yeses. We have 2 no's. Okay. So that motion has been approved. So we are going to defer for another meeting. I think, Commissioners, were the comments from the chair as far as some of the specificity? Is that some of the information you all would like to see?
Sure, I'd love to know exactly what we're coming back to discuss. That'd be great, and I'll be ready.
Okay, because I think some specificity would be the best. Otherwise, you have vague discussions. And so, Commissioner, if you have some specific items that you would share with the staff, then that would help with our discussion when we're ready to proceed in a month from now. Or if you have those items ready now, that would be helpful.
I think, the challenge for me, colleagues, is kind of, commissioner hat versus council member hat. And so when I go through this document, I do it with my council member hat. And so I've got quite a lot of markups on this, and I know often when we're here together, I've got a lot to kind of say and share and add and change and so forth. So I guess, again, got this Monday afternoon, council meeting Tuesday evening till 2:30 in the morning, colleagues. So, other commitments in the week, I didn't get to this till this weekend. That does, I guess what I struggle with is, if we want to go through this document top to bottom, I have a community meeting at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to need to depart. What I would, I don't want, while I think it is important for the public to hear us deliberate any substantive changes, any communication I have with staff is public record.
Okay.
What's back before us at next meeting is potentially chair amended for people's consideration. So, getting a level of specificity at this juncture, chair, is going to take a lot of time.
Okay.
So I'm open to especially called and/or just sharing with the public what some potential amendments are well in advance of next meeting.
So right now, this item has been deferred till our next meeting, which is November the 14th. So I'm not hearing a call for a special meeting.
Are we going to be ready for a special meeting? I guess what I'd really like, because I appreciate the 2 hats that the councilwoman has, because you're the one that carries, I understand that. You've got to answer this to the council. So it would seem like we need to work with you to help get this ready to go to council. And that's what I want to have the tools to do to help, if that's specially called or staying here as long as we need to next month to get this solved. Whatever it takes.
All right. So, I guess on behalf of the commission, let me work with staff to try to see if we can come up with a document for the next meeting with sufficient time as the chair so that we can get this to everyone with enough notice based on the feedback we've gotten, provide so that we can have some we have some framework to go through this, because I don't think anyone's sitting here interested in going through this line by line. But I do think we need to go through the major context of it to make sure that we're clear on the major context. Would that be agreeable to the commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, and if we could, I would point out to the public that this document is online, so we appreciate, folks being here, but, we do also have an email address as a commission, so,
Yes.
if folks want to comment, that's a
Right.
forum
So,
in the
and that-
intervening time,
right.
so that we can make sure, because commissioners, that's what, on the council side, obviously, something has 3 readings. And so when you
Yes.
hear from the public and they raise questions, then you want to make sure that
That's why we had a public hearing today, council members, so that we could hear the comments that were made.
understood, Chair, but then we need time to incorporate them.
I
do we
understand,
not?
and so we have a motion that's been approved to defer till the next meeting. And again, I think as we've done at every one of these meetings, we've always encouraged those who have comments to share them so that we can act accordingly.
Chairman, is there a deadline that you and the council member would be comfortable with, that we receive this back to review? Is it 2 weeks before our next meeting, or to give plenty of time to be ready to go?
Everyone here is all busy. I'm well aware of that. And so I think our goal is to try to give people at least a week ahead of time, if not more. So we have a draft that everyone has to go through. They now have an additional 4 weeks to review it again, 5, I think.
So will we be getting anything?
Yes, the goal is to maybe get some maps, some better clarification.
Great.
And we'll get a clean version that everybody can look at.
And then
Excuse me.
our plan is to deliberate this at the next.
At the next meeting.
Okay.
So, okay. And again, anyone in the audience, if you have comments to make, there's a venue to do that by going to our Traffic Commission website. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is to approve the Indot policy for removal of public parking spaces for development. Who is speaking to that? Is that you, Mr. Odom? Ms. Alicorn, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is a policy we would like for y'all to start consideration for. We get a lot of requests for removal of parking spaces for many different uses by developers. And so we sat back and thought of policies, and also reached out to other cities about some of their practices, what they've done. Really, the intent behind this is to encourage the developers to put the general public parking spaces back, if not in the same place, in a place nearby, and if not, then for the city to receive reimbursement for the removal of that public parking space over a period of 20 years. So this is the policy that is before you for your consideration.
Thank you. Does everyone see the policy?
It's not in the middle of the first one.
This is the one that looks just like this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chair, I have a point of order, please.
Do you have a question? Yes, Commissioner.
I am interested to understand, so today, when I was going back online to the website to see about, was there a red line version of the ordinance that we just discussed? Were these draft policies? I did not see the staff report online, so I saw the agenda, I saw the draft legislation, not in red line form, but I did not see this draft policy online. And I just wanted to clarify that before we proceed with discussion, because I think that this is a pretty significant policy change comparative to waiving of parking fees for special events. Pretty significant, colleagues. So I just wanted to make sure, as far as stakeholders and appropriate notice and it being online for people to comment on, if it was in fact online, please.
Thank you. Staff comment to that, please.
I'm having them verify, but we do believe it was available online, but they're verifying it right now.
Okay. Could you specify, what's the current policy now concerning, I'll just use the developer working on a street where there's meters?
There is not a policy. There's not a policy, Mr. Chair. That's why we're bringing one before you for consideration. Is we wanted to put something in place that would provide guidance to staff when a developer's coming in and wanting to use the right-of-way for their own public use, where we would, in essence, be looking at putting perhaps a general public parking spot or even a bike lane or even for future transit use. But mainly, this is geared toward parking. So we do get a lot of development that's coming through right now that is making a request to remove the on-street parking so that they can add driveways or they can add, drop off and pick-up spots for Uber and Lyft. And we just do not feel that's the best appropriate use of a general public parking space. We really want to encourage them to use driveways that are not going to be in direct conflict with current public parking spaces. We do not want them to be using that area for Uber and Lyft, especially if the city is generating current revenue, or if there's a potential for generating future revenue. Just a reminder, the revenue collected actually will go toward both infrastructure for transportation and parking improvements. And that's been something that through your recommendation of the smart parking program, that contract that we've been moving forward, all of this is going to be coming about. So we feel like we're trying to get in front of this versus behind it and chasing it. So, but we are getting a lot of requests right now. And so it helps staff be able to say, you're either going to identify another place to put the general public parking spots or put the general public spots back, which is what we first want, or you're going to reimburse Metro Nashville, Davidson County for the lost revenue of those parking spaces.
Yes, Commissioner Woods.
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate putting this into place. I feel like it's important. I don't know if this is a situation, but is there any, it's where did the 20 years come from? And then is there any locations where parking is zero or minimal? And could we implement a minimum of X as a part of that average so that there's a baseline there that's applied to parking spaces that aren't as utilized?
So we did it based on 5 years average. So for example, if they've come to us and they said, we want to remove so many number of parking spaces for whatever reason, we would go back and look at the 5-year average of revenue that would be collected and then do the 20 years based on that. So it would be a change based on what's going on in the marketplace. So if today's time, there is no parking, but as we're finding our city's growing very quick and tomorrow there is parking, we would be adjusting accordingly. That's why we did it on a 5-year average. So it doesn't look at what's just happening today. It looks at a 5-year period of what's been going on in the area or on that particular street.
Okay, so there's 10 spaces, is the average of all those 10 spaces together?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Are there any other comments? Yes.
Chair, I'd like an answer to my question if this was online.
Well, that's what,
I don't believe it was. respectfully.
So staff is, yes, agreeing with council member. It was part of your package, but it was not online, so we apologize for that.
Okay, so I guess the question that might get asked is, what kind of feedback have you gotten concerning this?
So in conversations that we've had with developers, they've asked us to put, where's the policy? So this was the first draft. So we put that, again, we're trying to bring these policies back before this commission to help us actually provide some of these guidances that staff can follow and to be having the appropriate conversation with the community. So we do apologize that it didn't get on, but it was part of your package. I'm not quite sure why it didn't make it online, but I'll find out.
Legal, do you have any comment concerning this matter? Or what is posting it on the agenda sufficient, or does the policy itself have to be posted?
Well, the commission is empowered from the charter to make these sorts of policies. And notice is not a requirement. I mean, it's always good to have notice to allow input, right? So, but the charter gives the commission the power to make these types of policies.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Is there a public comment opportunity now? I know you did for the last item. I don't know if that's...
Okay, so, because we have a motion and a second, okay, so we'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments, please, sir. And please state your name for the record. And
hello, Jeremiah Wooten, 1828 Wild Oaks Court, 37013. To me, what stood out to this as I've followed Traffic and Parking Commission over the last couple of years, typically the way I've seen this happen in practice is a developer will want to remove metered spots, and they will relocate those metered spots to what are nearby currently free parking spaces, which raises a lot of questions for me if we're allowing these developers to essentially remove free parking to shift that metered parking, and also, to me, raises the question of why are we giving away our right-of-way at all for free parking in a lot of areas. So in terms of my preference, I think the policy should always be if you are removing a parking space, you are paying for that parking space. This idea of relocating it to another spot doesn't make sense to me, because those spots either should already be charged for if we think it is worth charging for that parking spot, or we should not be giving away that right of way for free at all. Those are my comments. Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so we have a first and a second. We've had some discussion. I ask for the yeas and the nays, as they say. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
No? Okay, the motion passes. I think that was the last item on the agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.